Headquarters Toastmasters of Fairfield, Iowa. I'm Sergeant at Arms, or Sergeant of Arms this evening. We meet every Tuesday night at 7:45, and there's been a change because the church is remodeling their lower levels. We're going to meet on the second floor of the First United Methodist Church. You come in the door facing B Street, take the elevator or the stairs to the second floor, and we're around the corner from the stairs. Just listen for people laughing and talking and having a good time. So please join me now in warmly welcoming our club president, Ron Whitaker.
Thank you, Master Sergeant at Arms. As the president, I open and close the meetings. And I see we have two cameras in the room tonight. I also welcome our guests, and we have a wonderful group of guests that I didn't get to meet yet. We also have Matt, who has a name tag, and we have Sally, who's a guest. And if our guests would like to stand up and say their name, you're welcome to do that. You don't have to, but if you want to speak, introduce yourself, that's fine. Yeah?
Hi everyone, I'm Ahsan Habib. I studied in Maharishi University of Management in Computer Science and Engineering. And I am actually been first year, and I would like to join with you all.
Very good.
Very good.
Hey, I'm DJ from Singapore. I'm studying in Maharishi University as well. It's an honor for me to be here.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Hardy. Like them, I'm from Maharishi. I'm from Indonesia. And this is my first time here. And honestly, I don't know what this is, but I think I know now. Golden Speakers Toastmaster. It's about speakers, basically. And I just want to know what this is, and I think this is going to be interesting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Adi.
Hi everyone, I'm Asanga. I'm from Sri Lanka, and I'm studying computer science in the Maharishi University. So this is my first time. I hope I like it a lot.
Thank you.
Yo!
I'm Aktaja Nyamdelik. I'm from Mongolia, and I came here 2 months ago. And also I study Maharishi University, and it's my first time here. I like it.
Thank you, Aktaja. Welcome.
Sure, yeah, my name is Matt, and I came here with my buddy Jeff. He's going to be speaking tonight, so I can take some pictures of him and
Thank
stuff,
you.
and all you guys.
Yay!
The club mission, what we do here is we provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. The Toastmasters International values, since we have so many international students here from our international community, the international values are integrity, respect, service, and excellence. We request that our guests come once or twice before they decide to join. We'd like to send you home with some magazines if you want and some pamphlets to look over. If you decided to become a member tonight, I can tell you exactly how much it would cost you. There are $3 a month club dues for Golden Speakers, $6 a month for International, Toastmasters International, and then a one-time, first-time fee for the 2 manuals, which is $20. If you joined today, you would be a member for 3 months, January, February, March, and it would cost you $47. That's just an introduction, so you have some idea. We are a nonprofit group. I would like to mention our time management. We have our timer who will be timing everyone who's speaking, including me. And if someone talks a little too long, we do something called clapping. We clap them off the stage because we have a structured program. We have a clock, we have the times on our agenda, and we stick to it. It helps us learn time management, how to use our life source energy more efficiently. So please don't take it personally if you get clapped off to the side. If the meeting is running behind schedule, we will cut the grammarian to 1 minute. We'll drop the drum roll that happens with the awards. We will also drop the general evaluator and the joke master. So let's not get behind. We love all those people. We want them to continue. Now I'd like to introduce our Toastmaster of the evening, Stephanie Chambers. Please help me warmly welcome Stephanie.
Welcome, everybody. I'm just going to invite up Atkinson. He's going to talk about a special event having in summer planning.
Yo!
Thanks, Stephanie. Good evening, Toastmasters. In a modification to the agenda, I'm going to speak on behalf of Jean Simonton Craig, who is home ill tonight, but who is the project manager for our upcoming special event on the 28th, when we will have a guest speaker and we will have this room absolutely packed with guests. These posters, which one of our members, John Laros, has been kind enough to print for us, are the big guns of our PR program for letting everyone in town know about our special event. So these, my objective in the next minute or two, is that we cover all of the shopping places, workplaces, banks, gas stations, anywhere where there is a place that a poster can be put in a window or could be put on an employee break room board. Any such place, we want to make sure that a poster goes up on it and that we have notes as to who is taking responsibility to make sure that the poster goes up. So let's begin with the category of shopping places. Let's begin with eating places. Everyone eats. And I'd like to have you help me go through a mental list of all of the eating places in town where we can get a poster posted. We know that India Cafe posts posters. Who would like to make sure that India Cafe is covered? Alex will take a poster for them. What other eating places on the square can you handle at the same time?
Noodle House also has.
Noodle House?
Right?
Mohan? Excuse me. Okay.
Yeah.
How about the gardens?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can do that. That's 4.
Others?
The Mexican restaurant across from the post office, they take flyers.
Arandas, across from the post office. Alex, will you put that on the list?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 5 places.
There are several on the north side of the square eating places which may have, which may post posters. Does anyone frequent those places that could take care of that?
I can take Revelations, Paradiso, and Biggie Ma's on 4th Street.
Okay.
And Thai Deli. I'll take 4.
Okay.
That's going to be a
Very
big
good.
lunch.
Now, there are some that are not around the square that we need to make sure are covered. There's a Chinese Imperial Buffet.
We'll do BP at the gas station, the Mexican at the gas station.
Okay. Stephanie is taking notes of all of these. If I didn't have to leave so quickly, I will do so myself. Stephanie will take notes of. Now, when we're done cataloging all the places, these posters here, I'm going to need you to take as many as the number of places that you signed up for. Is there another eating place that anyone is familiar with that we can put posters?
Paradiso, I'll do that also. I called that one.
You got it?
Okay.
You got
Called it.
How about the Hacienda?
Try to take Paradiso.
Anybody ever?
Yeah, I do Hacienda.
She'll do Hacienda,
And maybe I'll try Kokomo's or the Best Western.
Kokomo's, and Best
The
Western.
Best
So
Western,
the
because
west
that
end
might
of
be a
town
good place to,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
people in
Yummy's.
town.
Is a possibility, is it not?
Yummies.
Yummy's? Anybody want to risk going into
I'll do
Yummy's?
Yummy's. I'll do it slide on that,
Carol
it's
will
on
take,
that road.
Sold.
take Yummy's. Sold.
I'll
Yep.
do Green Gourmet, Mohans, and Crepe Escape.
Okay,
And
there's
there's
three.
somewhere else.
Oh,
It's a sushi
everybody's.
place, I'll take that. Or Second Street Cafe.
Second Street Cafe and the sushi.
Sushi place if they take it, I don't know if they do post.
Okay,
Second Street Cafe's
Yeah,
closed.
let's move to
the
a
end of the
different-
month.
They what?
They're closed to the end of the month.
different category. How about workplaces? We have people here who work at,
I'll do the Amy Round building, the brick building on 4th.
okay, Amy Round Building.
I'll do 2 at Cambridge.
Rick Starr will do 2 at Cambridge.
I'll do 2 at the Atrium building.
Thank you very much, Rhonda. Sally?
I'll do Chris Johnson's commercial buildings. Chris Johnson's commercial buildings.
Everyone may not
123,
know which those
101,
are.
Golden Gate, Orpheum.
Okay.
I'll do Chris Johnson's properties.
Okay, thank you very much.
How many?
How about another category? How about shopping places? Hy-Vee has a board?
No, they don't.
They don't.
More.
No board?
No, they don't.
No,
Okay.
everybody's has a
I'm
board.
learning. He'll still have the board?
I'll hit that because I'm doing crepe
Because you're doing crepes.
Okay, very good.
Localize and Jet Stop. I'll do those.
Okay. We have 50 posters and I believe an equal number of 8.5 by 11s. Okay, what's another category that we
putting any on campus?
I'll do the ladies.
Yeah.
Ladies' Dome, Stephanie's got it.
Subtle do names.
I'll do
Suggestions?
the banks downtown,
Okay, so you'll do all 3 banks at the square
plus the branches.
and the branches?
I'll do all
out west?
6 branches, so
Okay,
I'll get them all.
very good. There's also Community First Credit Union.
Do that too.
Okay.
There's a place to post right on the other side of Century 21, right? There's a billboard.
Right on the outside of the street.
Yeah.
How about our big box retailers? The hardware store, Ace Hardware?
I'll do Luckman's,
Walmart.
Fairfield Lumber, the veterinary clinic.
Okay, so you'll check for, now, in some places of business, it's okay to put one in the window. Of course, Fairfield Nutrition will put one in the window. And there may be others on the square that we're not talking about. Is anyone willing to walk the square and look for businesses that will put one in their window?
Bring your own Scotch tape.
I'll volunteer to do that.
Karen, that would probably be another 6 or 7 posters.
Yeah. I can. And I'll go like Bob's Automotive.
Suggestions of a category that I'm
I
missing?
suppose. I don't know if churches
Okay.
would take them or not.
All right, so Stephanie, we
Do we
may
want to
have,
notify Cambridge?
He's taking Cambridge.
Rick is taking Cambridge. How many are you going to need for
He
Cambridge?
can only put up 2.
2,
That's all he's allowed to put up.
okay.
What kind of deal?
Yeah. Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, now, is campus adequately covered with the,
You gotta get permission on campus. You cannot put anything up without permission.
okay,
Yes, you can get permission.
Karen, Karen would be our point person for that, correct?
Whatever, I don't know.
Okay.
Who do we ask?
Student activities.
Ask Karen or ask the,
Karen Aoki would be the person to ask. Okay, I believe that we're done. I'm going to ask our Toastmaster, Stephanie Chambers. Her hand is probably cramped from writing so fast. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
thank you.
Don't forget, take out your posters.
So I'll just quickly introduce the role players for tonight. Our timer is Rick Stowe. Rick, do you want to explain your role?
Yes, all the, thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests. We time all speeches at Toastmasters. We time both the impromptu speeches, the table topics, and the prepared speeches. Impromptu speeches are timed from 1 to 2 minutes. At 1 minute, a green light will come on. At 1 minute and 30 seconds, a yellow light will come on. And at 2 minutes, a red light will come on. For impromptu speeches for table topics, you need to speak at least 1 minute, and the maximum time is 2.5 minutes. We have one prepared speech tonight, and that will be from 10 to 12 minutes long. So the green light will come on at 10 minutes, the yellow light at 11 minutes, the red light at 12 minutes, and the speaker, in order to qualify, has to be within 30 seconds before 10 minutes or 30 seconds after 12 minutes. Thank you. At the end, not thank you. At the end of the meeting, I'll give a timer's report as to the time of all the speeches, and also before the voting, I'll let people know who qualified to vote for. And Tom is saying I'm not
Evaluators time.
Evaluators. I'm also timing the evaluators at 2 to 3 minutes. Thank you.
So welcome to tonight. We have Stephen Harper.
I can count when people say or like, you know, so, but, and, make tongue clicks, pause, Xerox, meaning says the same thing over again, or has a false start. And I'll make a report at the end of the meeting as well.
Yo.
And I just mentioned we do that not to criticise, but just to make us aware of our own mistakes to improve. So now I'll call on Will to explain the role of grammarian.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. My job as grammarian is to give you the word of the day, which I will here in a minute, watch for any colorful use of the English language, and note any incorrect use of the English language, and give you tips on how to correct that issue. So, the word of the day, if you can hear me, is August. It means respected and impressive. Then you count yourself among peers within this August body.
Ha!
And I will give a report at the end.
At the end, we'll hear from our German evaluator, Scott Terry, and our reader master, Stephen Harper. And the ballot leader counter is Ben Craig. Anything you want to say?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. So now I'll call on Carol and Greg to do table topics. Please welcome Carol.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests and viewers at home. I'm the Table Topics Master for tonight, and I chose to pick topics that were related to today's theme, which was about winter, the quote from Camus. So I used other quotes that I found about winter. And the purpose of Table Topics is to encourage people to take a chance and come up on something they're not prepared for and speak on their feet. You're encouraged to use the word of the day and fit it in any way possible. So my quotes are all about winter, and so do we have any volunteers for a table topic? Our guests? Now. Okay. The quote is, "To appreciate the beauty of a snowflake, it is necessary to stand out in the cold."
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very well.
Thank you very much, everybody at home. Thank you very much. I watched myself raise my hand in fear, and I said, "What am I doing?" But I had to be. I wanted to be August, and I wanted to be bold, and I wanted to stand out like a snowflake, like a beautiful snowflake. And sometimes when you stand out, you got to get a little cold. You got to get a little dirty. You got to get a little wet. You got to get uncomfortable. You got to get out of your comfort zone. Stand here and say, "Here I am. Look at me. I'm a beautiful snowflake. You're a beautiful snowflake too. And you, and you, and you, and you, and you, and you." Everybody here is all unique, individual, beautiful snowflakes. Unless you watch Fight Club, then they'll tell you different. So, real quick, so I can have this cherished memory of all you beautiful snowflakes, I'd like to take a couple pictures here. And always remember to turn off your phones. Hey, excuse me, I'm doing a speech right now. So anyway, thank you all for being the wonderful individual snowflakes that you are. I would encourage you all to go out into the cold, get out of your comfort zone, and enjoy being out in the comfort zone. We will all grow together there. Thank you.
volunteer?
Pick someone.
Pick someone.
Oh,
Well, I know, oh, Ed's gonna do it,
Ed's
yes.
gonna do it. Okay.
Yo!
This quote is, "Let us love winter, for it is the spring of genius."
Well, this is fantastic. We're here in the winter, and now we're going to celebrate the genius of winter. What I love about winter is the spring. I love to dream of the spring. I love to dream of the gardens and the motorcycle rides and the warm sun on my body. In fact, sometimes I'll go wherever there's a pane of glass with a south exposure, take my shirt off. Even in public, I've been known to do this and get sun on my body. The winter's a blessed time. It's a time to contemplate our future. It's a time to get deep rest. It's a time to recognize the differences in life. Winter is cold. Summer is hot. Spring is cool. Fall is beautiful. So winter is a time for us to recognize the august nature of the seasons, and I do believe that is the correct pronunciation.
Yo! Carolyn.
Next, volunteer? Will.
Well,
This one's a little offbeat. A lot of people like snow. I find it an unnecessary freezing of water.
You can't please everybody. And for all the people that would want to be outside, letting the sun hit their body, there's somebody who'd prefer to be in the winter, enjoying all the other beautiful snowflakes around them. Now, for Toastmasters, honored and distinguished guests, and viewers at home. What do you do? What do you do when you're caught in this challenge between people? The winter lovers, the spring lovers, those who really just want to be in the endless days of summer, and those autumn. Show of hands here. Who likes the spring? Who likes the summer? Autumn? Winter.
ha!
You can't please everything. But you can find your own path.
I'll go up.
So I believe it's time for voting.
We have time for one more.
We have time for one more?
Probably
Okay.
one.
People don't notice it's winter or summer when they're happy.
Madam Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, honored and distinguished guests, viewers at home. You may not know this, but we'll be on FPAC and on YouTube next week, probably by Friday this week. You don't notice the season if you're happy. If you're happy, nothing can make you unhappy unless you listen to your mind, which is very conniving in trying to convince you that there's something wrong with right now. Unless you think about it, what could be wrong with right now? Right now is all you got. There's no yesterday, there's no tomorrow, there's just right now. But growing up in the West, we have been indoctrinated into believing that we have to think about everything. Is it good or is it bad? Is it hot or cold? Up, down? The totality of duality. Is it this or is it that? Well, guess what? It's all of that. So unless you think about things, you can't get in too much trouble because you're in whatever there is. You can't be depressed because you're not thinking about yesterday. You can't be worried because you're not thinking about tomorrow. But you can be happy. That is a choice. Madam Table Topics Master.
Okay, it is now time to vote for the best.
Sorry to interrupt, Carol.
Oh,
I think
okay.
what we're going to do is have, is this correct, 2 Table Topics Masters, and so we'll just vote at the very end. So we're making up a bit of time because we had a speaker fall out at the last minute. So we're going to have 2 sessions of Table Topics, and Cindy Traynor is going to run the second lot of Table Topics.
Yo!
Our theme tonight is Cold Hands, Warm Heart. And I'd like to have a volunteer. We have a few props that we can have fun with. And I also have one item someone can talk about, and then I'll have to come the rest off the top of my head. So we'll see how that part goes. Can I have a volunteer? Or do I pick somebody? Scott, you want to come on?
Yo!
You can pick something out of...
Something in your head.
Something in my head. Okay. Well, I was looking at the quote, cold hands and warm heart. I wanted to know where it came from. And it also said something very interesting because it said it was the name of a Twilight Zone episode. So let's say you're a writer hired by the executives that run the Twilight Zone series. And so what would you write about what would you write as a writer? What would you make your episode that you're in charge to write for? What would you make it all about? You know the Twilight Zone?
Yes, yes, of course I do.
You're familiar with it.
Ha!
All right, cool.
Ha!
Well, yeah. Have fun.
Me and Stephanie are escaping for a little road trip. We drive 4 hours to get to St. Louis. Another 4 hours to get to Kansas City. And then on the way home, we stop at Hannibal, Missouri. That's right, that one. We're in the cave of Mark Twain. Cold outside, really cold, cold hands. We were getting lost out of the cold into another zone. And what's interesting about this zone, this place, is there are names written all over the walls, some from the late 1800s. It's amazing. So when we think about a twilight zone of escaping to a past, we go to a place, all of us, that is seeking something from the depths of who we are. And we're finding it on the walls around us. But what is it we're looking for when we look at history? Our history. The history on the walls. The history that we're constantly seeking within ourselves. In this twilight zone, I'm lost in the Hannibal Caves and the lights are off. And it starts coming to life. All the hundreds of names from 100 years ago. Part of ourself we're exploring. They're not visions of somebody else's past. They're a vision of our own. We're the ones who bring it to life. We're the ones to remember that life isn't out there or on a wall or in a twilight zone. We're the imaginaires of our own life. And it's allowing that to come present every single day. And as Tom said, to choose our happiness. Thank you. Ms. Tableback.
Yeah.
Yo!
Somebody else? Alex?
Yo.
What? You can answer the Twilight Zone question or pick something from.
I will pick a prop.
All right. Warm hands, cold heart.
Close.
Thank you very much, Madam Table Topics Master. Fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home, guests. I am not used to this. I grew up in Venezuela, where it never gets below 60 degrees. Okay? One time it got to 57. Everybody freaked out. You would never see anybody wearing one of these. Okay? So this is very unusual for me. A few years ago, I was driving from Fairfield to Houston. And it was one of my first winters here in Fairfield. And it had rained, and then the temperature dropped, and the water froze, and it created this about 1 inch thick layer of ice around my car. Have you had this happen to you? Yes. People who lived here had this happen to you. Okay. So I am going to drive down to Houston, but first I have to get into my car somehow. Okay? I only have these guys. That apparently is not enough. But somehow I break through, I open the door, I get into my car, and I start driving down to Houston. Okay? It just so happened that there was this crazy cold front coming through the middle of the country. And the cold front meant that the temperature was below zero all the way through Kansas and all the way even down to Oklahoma. So I'm driving with this thick layer of ice on my car all the way through Kansas, all the way through Oklahoma. I'm stopping at gas stations and people are looking over and saying, "Where are you coming from?" It looked like I just arrived in the car from like Back to the Future. Just crazy covered ice and just insanity, okay? Sometime around Dallas, the temperature finally warmed up. And as I'm driving in the middle of the highway, I just see in the rearview mirror the ice explode off of my car, and I just see it fly in pieces all over the highway, and hopefully, and thankfully it didn't hit anybody, and I was okay. Madam Toastmaster.
Yo!
Let's see, how are we doing for time? Oh goodness, 10 more minutes.
We got lots.
Oh, we've got lots of time. Would one of our guests like to come up and talk? Okay, let's pick another volunteer. Rhonda, if you want to come up.
Yo!
Would you like to talk about a Twilight Zone? Or would you like to pick a prop?
Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone. All right. When have you ever experienced cold hands and warm heart in a Twilight Zone?
Ha!
Well, this is my own personal Twilight Zone that I live with my family. Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. I recently visited Williamsburg, Virginia, which was 81 degrees at Virginia Beach on December 23rd. It was fabulous. On the way to Virginia Beach. My granddaughters who are 18 drove the car. They were doing, you know what a selfie is? A selfie? The one that's driving is posing while she's driving 65 miles per hour for the other one, and we're swerving into 4 lanes of traffic. Grandma was freaking out. And saying certain things she would never repeat in public. So I'm sure they'll never take me anyplace else because there were several other incidences where we nearly wiped out. And I know they're only 18 and they don't really know what life is all about yet. And I know a little more than them, but I'm still wondering what it's all about because I'm in a car going 70 miles per hour with 2 18-year-olds taking selfies. My hands were cold. My heart was warm. When I heard they were going, I thought, if those 2 girls die, it's not going to be on my watch. I'm going with them. And they're both ADHD, so it's very frenetic when they do things. I love them dearly. One of my other experiences in the Twilight Zone with my family is that I happened to ask, as we're driving through Williamsburg, if the forest was a real forest, because all the trees were perfectly straight and they didn't look like a natural forest. That was the wrong thing to say to my 40-year-old son and my 2 18-year-old granddaughters, because they said, "Grandma's senile." I said, wait. When I went to Germany, all the forests were planted in rows. Every tree was a man-made forest. And I just wondered if all the beautiful forests in Williamsburg were for real. It took me an hour. I was in tears and laughing hysterically before they would finally give me a break. That was my Twilight Zone. That's what it's like to get old in Williamsburg, Virginia.
Yo!
Okay.
Got time for one more?
2 more.
2 more.
2 or 3
Same
more.
subject?
Same subject. Come on up.
Yeah.
I figured that.
Okay, welcome. All right. You want to pick something from here, or you want to talk about your Twilight
Zone.
All right. Okay.
Go ahead, more parts.
Exactly. Have at it.
When I was a young man, I had a cousin, Doug. Doug, for some reason, he worshipped me. He was 8 years younger than me, and he always wanted to go camping. So I eventually got permission to take him camping, and we would go camping. And we did this over the years. And for some reason, our family would get together, and we would have Christmas. We'd always fantasize about going winter camping. So the 3rd time we went winter camping, each year it got progressively colder. And we decided we were going to go to this place called Indian Cave in Nebraska. And it was 15 degrees below zero with a strong wind and snowing. So we get to this place and we're laughing. We see these other 2 guys getting out of their car carrying a box tent. Because these guys don't know what they're doing. These guys don't know how to take care of themselves out in the woods. They just got a box tent. So we hiked into this place, and we found a nice spot, we set up camp, and then we had this big meal, and then as we always like to do, we always like to go for a long hike, because you warm up after you eat all that food. Now again, it's 15 degrees below zero. So we go on this hike in this huge 20,000 acre forest, and I get completely lost, and there's absolutely no directions. Can't figure out where the hell we are, and we're in the Twilight Zone. So I decided that I'm just going to go in the opposite direction that I think it is, and we stumbled into our camp. It was just an absolute miracle that we found our camp. But the good news was we had his little doggie with us, and we were cold that night, but the next day we went out, we found a bale of hay, we drug it back to camp, we put it underneath us. We went to bed. We had the dog in the middle. We had cold hands, but we had warm hearts.
Two more.
2 more topics. Okay, we're going to burn through all our people here. Carol, you want to come up and give it a shot? Thank you. You're welcome. I'll do the bag. You'll do the bag. All right. Well, don't have a huge variety in here, but you can have fun. Cold hands and a warm heart. Now, this is made, it's an ice cube tray, right?
Correct.
Well, what would you do, what would you use it for if you wanted to do something warm with it? Or you can talk about whatever you want.
I'll second you for that. Madam Toastmaster, Toastmasters, honored guests, and viewers at home. It's an honor to be in front of this august body. And as I look at this purple, it reminds me of a punch I once made, and it was for a party. And I was going to make this punch and fill the bodies and the souls of my friends to celebrate 12th night, but I noticed that I didn't have any ice cubes. So I went to the freezer and I picked out an ice cube tray, took it to the sink, filled it with water, popped it back in. As I was in this process and thinking about 12th night, my heart was filled with all the warm memories of Christmas and what 12th night meant, and all the musical concerts I'd done around 12th night, enjoying it, the spirits of 12th night. And also, I was filled with warmth to the idea of celebrating with my friends. So, the coldness that touched my fingertips as I removed the ice cube tray from the freezer didn't bother me at all, because I knew it outweighed the warmth of my heart for my friends.
Go.
Time for one more. Anybody just really dying to get up here and talk about something? No.
How about if we let them talk in their own language?
Sure.
Okay, let's stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go. How are you? Thank you for coming out. So you've seen everybody go, talk about, but you can talk about what you want.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you
I
can
know.
do it in English, or you can do it in native.
No, I will try to tell in English.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone. But I mean, few minutes ago I want to woke up. I mean, I want to stand, but I couldn't. I don't know how to tell or how to represent before you. Firstly, I want to thank everyone, so much friendly and so much cooperative. I want to tell snowfalling in Fairfield. I haven't seen it before. What I seen in the movie, it's really nice. Oh, snowfalling, a hero and heroine going outside, they're going for dinner, they were in the car, but it was not so good when I faced in Fairfield. I mean, a few days ago, it was wind was blowing so hardly, and also I mean snowfalling. I mean, bad luck or unluckily, I was outside. I was not in town. I was going there, but it was the wind is so blowing. I cannot move this way. I have to go this way. And at that moment, I remember the movie is not always true. And yeah, thank you everyone. I want to tell anything that at that time my hand was so cold, but heart was so so warm. Then for that I can reach dome.
That concludes table topics.
Need to get timer.
Mr. Timer, could you please can you read the names of those that qualify?
All the speakers qualified, and that was Matt, Ed, Will, Tom, Scott, Alex, Rhonda, Ed a second time, Carol, and Habib.
Thank you. So you see, You have your sheet with a ballot, please.
Pass it over to the.
All right, in the interest of time, let's move on to the next portion, which is our table topics evaluator. Our first table topics evaluator, please warmly welcome Alex Sakay.
Yeah.
Alright, thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. That was fun, wasn't it?
Ah,
Yeah,
sure.
cool. Yeah. So I will evaluate the first 4 speakers, and Dan's going to evaluate the other 5 or 6, I believe, that we had.
Unfair.
So I'll start with Matt. Matt, where's Matt? There we go. Okay. What I liked about you is you were very funny, charismatic, very easygoing and laid back. My only suggestion for you would be to try to tell a story. Try to latch on to some story, even if it's a short one, because it's a nice structure for the audience, and it also makes it easier to talk rather than having to think about what to say next. You can just tell a story. It mentally kind of eases the moment of being up here. But you had a lot of fun with it, and that was great. That really comes through. Ed, what I liked about you the best is that you have a very clear voice, so it just kind of fills the room. I wish I had that deep voice that you have. It's very nice. My only suggestion for you is that you were here most of the time. You were standing in one spot, and you also, your gestures were very limited. So even though you filled the room with your voice, you were pretty much here the whole time. Okay? Will, I really liked how you came out to the front, and you started with a statement. It was a very powerful way to start. You can't please everybody. Right away, you had it. You had everybody. My only suggestion for you, I thought it was a little short. You did make the time, but it felt like your talk was very abbreviated. I would have liked to see you elaborate a little more. Tom, like Will, you also came out to the front and you greeted the audience and you started with a statement. You're very conversational and personable, and you're a veteran speaker, so I had a hard time coming up with something to suggest for you, but my only suggestion, because you're a veteran speaker and you are conversational, would be to kind of come out a little bit to the front. You also stayed back. You can ask people questions. You can talk to the audience a little more. You have that kind of experience to be able to pull that off well. And that's my evaluation.
This is Dan Craig. He's going to be evaluating our second group of table topics people.
Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, honored and distinguished guests, viewers at home. I'm evaluating 6 people, so I will go a little quickly. First we had Scott. I commend him for taking a moment to think, which is something that I find hard to do. I get up here and I can't think, but if you're a little stumped with your subject, you can gather your thoughts for a while. He did that well. Scott didn't greet his audience, I don't think, so that's my recommendation for him. Otherwise, quite good and interesting to go from the Hannibal Cave to the actual topic. Alex was next. He did a whole lot of good things, as I'm sure you noticed. He greeted the audience. He started out by saying, "I'm not used to this." He, definitely got our attention. One thing I'd recommend for Alex is that even though he had this great story, he kind of got to the end and finished. So if he could have just finished that great story with a little wrap-up, or here's the moral of the story, or whatever, that would have been an improvement. But he had lots of great vocal variety, wonderful gestures. He asked questions of the audience to engage. All that went very well. Then Rhonda had a nice talk about being with her grandchildren in Williamsburg, and some very funny things. If they were going to die, it wasn't going to be in Grandma's house. She also took some time to think about it, and I thought the story in general was really great. The only thing I noticed was that she greeted the topics master, but nobody else, a small thing. Then we had Ed in his second appearance, giving a story about camping with Cousin Doug. I thought this was really excellent, and as Alex mentioned, you've got a great voice. It really draws us all in. The one thing that I would mention for you is somewhat similar to what Alex said. Since you are so engaging as a speaker, then if you'll also add maybe coming to the front of the lectern, a little more focused eye contact, a little longer with each person, then your audience will feel a little more engaged. But overall, quite good. And I really like the way you wrapped it up by tying back to the, the warm hands, cold heart. The dog in the middle and the bale of hay underneath. Carol in her ice cube trays. This was good. She had a nice story. She had a good wrap-up where she said that the cold in her hands didn't detract from the warmth of her heart for the people coming to the party. That was good. The only thing I'd mention to you is that when you're thinking, it's probably better not to look down at your ice cube tray. Well, you sort of look for inspiration from your ice cube tray. It's probably better to space out looking up. And finally, Hassan, if I'm saying that correctly. Full marks, really great, excellent humor. He gave us a good story about the shock of his first snowfall in Fairfield. So well done, everyone. Madam Toastmaster.
Yo!
Now we move on to the second half of the meeting where we have a prepared speech for tonight. And I'll welcome Rick Starr to introduce Jeff Shipley.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, and viewers at home. Jeff Shipley will be delivering a speech 7 from the Competent Communicator Manual, Research Your Topic. Jeff's speech is titled Soul Force, an introduction to Mohandas K. Gandhi's Satyagraha. Jeff graduated University of Iowa with a degree in political science. He's worked professionally for political interest groups and has helped candidates who share his ideological views and concerns on campaigns from the local level to the presidential nominating contests. And a few of them actually won. Jeff has lived in Fairfield since July 2011 and is very thankful to his adoptive community for exposing him to all sorts of life-changing and health-promoting concepts. Currently, he serves the Republican Party of Iowa on their state central committee and prepares bankruptcies for clients across southeast Iowa while working for attorney Ed Noyes. Jeff has never been more anxious or excited to deliver a speech to our group, and he hopes he does a very important topic justice. The objectives of Jeff's speech are to collect information about his topic from numerous sources and to carefully support his points and opinions with specific facts, examples, and illustrations gathered through research. Jeff's speech will be from 10 to 12 minutes. Please join me in welcoming Jeff Shipley.
This is my source material for tonight's speech. Fellow Toastmasters, honored and distinguished guests, and viewers at home. On the occasion of Mohandas K. Gandhi's 70th birthday, the legendary, august theoretical physicist Albert Einstein remarked, "Generations to come scarce will believe that such a man as this ever walked the earth in flesh and blood." So here we are, generations later. That was in 1939. I'm somewhat ashamed to admit that prior to last spring, I maybe had the slightest idea of who Mohandas Gandhi was and what he actually accomplished. So my purpose of this talk this evening will be to share Mohandas Gandhi's contributions to the field of political science. And Mohandas Gandhi was a political scientist in the truest sense of the word. Mohandas Gandhi's political experiments earned him the respect and admiration of people around the world and impacted the lives of millions. They earned him honorific titles like Mahatma, meaning great soul. He was called Bapu, which is Hindi for father, father of a self-ruling India. But Gandhi would state unequivocally that his political experiments to him didn't hold much value. And the title of Mahatma, even less value. In fact, the title of Mahatma caused him deep pain on frequent occasion. What Gandhi was most concerned about to him personally was his spiritual experiences, his relationship with God, his striving for enlightenment and moksha, spiritual liberation. And it's with these spiritual experiments that he used to derive his political power. He uses spirituality is how he derived his great political power. So it was in 1906 that Gandhi decided he needed to define his political activism, his theory of working in politics. Before then, he had been toying around with the term passive resistance, but that proved unsuitable because passive resistance sort of implied or had the implication that the passive resistors were weak, that they didn't have the means to advance themselves any other way, that they were resorting to this out of weakness. And also, it didn't necessitate the use of nonviolence. And there was kind of an idea, well, the passive resistors, they would use violence if they could, they just weren't in a position to do so. So hence, the necessary distinction and differentiation was necessary for Gandhi. So he took to the pages of his newsletter in South Africa, Indian Opinion, and he had a contest for people to submit ideas on what they should call themselves. How should they define, to formulate a term to use for their political activism. And actually it was Gandhi himself who adapted a submission from one of his family members, and it was a compound Sanskrit word. They conjoined satyam, which is truth, with agraha, which would be firmness. So they created satyagraha, firmness in truth, clinging to truth, truth force, essentially. Now, his doctrines and beliefs had many sources. The Bhagavad Gita and the renouncement of attachments was primary. Also, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount was frequently recited during worship. More recent literary influence would be Ruskin, Henry Thoreau, and Leo Tolstoy's The Kingdom of God is Within You. But the practical applications of these concepts in political and social life was entirely Gandhi. So came up this term, satyagraha, truth force. Truth to Gandhi was also the soul or the spirit, so he would frequently use the term soul force. Now, in Gandhi's own words, in English, he frequently spoke in English too, truth implies love and firmness engenders and therefore serves as a synonym for force. I thus begin to call the Indian movement in South Africa satyagraha, that is to say, the force that is born of truth and love. Now, I personally think that's a very eloquent way to put what he was trying to do. Some Westerners, critical Westerners, say, oh, that's weakness. That doesn't really mean a whole lot to me. But there was nothing weak about Gandhi in his resolve or his rhetoric. Often, he was known to say, better to die than submit to the law. Better to die than submit to the law. The law in any particular instance would be any law which degrades humanity, which doesn't necessitate or provide for the necessary amount of human self-respect and dignity which is innate in everyone. and we were all children of God. So any law which violated us being children of God, better to die than to submit to it. Doesn't sound very weak. It's very strong in his resolve. And again, so he wanted to emphasize that this is a tool of strength. You're coming from a position of strength. Because a true satyagrahi, they would have to be spiritually and mentally prepared to be deprived and robbed of all their possessions, to spend years on end in prison, to give up their life. Whereas the British or his opponents would be covered head to toe in body armor. Who's the one who's weak? The person who's marching forward, a line of bayonets, waiting to be clubbed? Or the person who's so afraid of pain and death, they're covered head to toe in body armor? So Satyagraha, one of the critical aspects was ahimsa, non-violence, peaceful cooperation with all. And again, adherence to ahimsa would be non-violence and peaceful cooperation in all thought, word, and action. Not so easily done. So ahimsa and non-violence is central to all of Gandhi's political campaigns. And when violence would break out, the campaign would be done. He would call it off. Now, there's a lot of nuances to this concept, and that's what makes it such a beautiful vehicle for political action, is all the nuances. One being that the means are inseparable from the ends. So no matter what the ends, it's really all about the means in which they were achieved. One will reap what they sow. Now, Gandhi famously illustrated this point, it's kind of well known, that, Virginia, let's say I wanted your watch, right? Well, if I wanted to deprive you of that, I could use violence and take it from you, or I could purchase it from you, use money and buy it from you, or I could beg and plead that you give me that watch. Depending on the means that I employed, that watch is either stolen property, my own personal property, or it's a donation. So the means produces drastically different outcomes. Now, when you are facing tremendous adversity and conditions, it's like, oh, we need to fight injustice with any means necessary. And Gandhi would reject that. Reject that on his face. That if you were to use violent or coercive means, you would just be entrenching the injustice. And it would just come back around again. That's why when Gandhi was stormed and badly beaten by a mob, he was mobbed, badly beaten, clubbed over the head, he didn't press any criminal charges. He would have been well within his legal rights to press criminal charges. But in his mind, if he were to use the coercion, the force, and the violence of the state, it would have been a temporary solution at best. And his decision to not press charges and actually sympathize and love those who attacked him actually did produce quite a bit of goodwill for him in his campaign in South Africa. Also, Gandhi believed that great evil cannot exist if you do not support it. And if a single satyagrahi withdrew their own support of evil from a deep enough level, it would be destined to collapse on itself. And evil cannot exist if you can't support it. So non-cooperation with evil would be a requisite for satyagraha, and oftentimes how the campaigns originated. So satyagraha can take many forms, but in a very narrow sense. Essentially, it's inviting the suffering onto you. It's inviting the suffering onto you and bringing it to the forefront so the injustice can be seen at all. You're inflaming the injustice to make it visible to anyone who casually observes. And then you're appealing to the hearts and the conscience of those oppressors with the motivation to make them your friend and ally. Because also the idea that the injustice or the evil hurts both parties. So by fixing this, you're uplifting both parties and you're converting them to allies and friends, which Gandhi frequently did. So appealing to the conscience and to the heart, much more effective, goes much deeper on human beings than any threat or violence could ever do. So there's a few different principles that were paramount to a Satyagraha campaign. First and foremost, ahimsa, non-violence. If you're even thinking about violence on your enemy, you're doing it wrong and you're destined to fail. Second would be truth and honesty. Satyam, it's right in the name. You avoid deception, avoid hyperbole and exaggeration, lest you were to hurt your own credibility. Subordination of sensual desires and control over pleasures of the flesh. Could include sexual chastity, but also control over the palate and diet as well. Economic self-sufficiency. Gandhi made his own clothes. He wore his own clothes. It was thought that communities should be able to provide for their own needs and not be reliant on any external forces, factors. So Gandhi would probably admonish me and think I look pretty foolish in this little outfit I'm wearing today.
Ha! Ha!
Non-possession, the idea that all of our possessions ultimately belong to everyone, and if you're in custody or possessing, say, 10 ounces of gold, it's your duty to use that to glorify God, better humanity, or avoid using it for any selfish ends or purposes. Also the cure of untouchability, the curse of untouchability, of the brutal, grinding poverty that existed in India with the lowest of the caste system. And Gandhi renamed them from untouchables to Harijans, children of God. And it was thought that if we allow our brothers and sisters to live in such brutal poverty right in our own neighborhood, our own backyard, our own state, our own country, then we're not even deserving of self-rule. So he made a campaign to alleviate poverty. And then again, it goes without saying, fearlessness is very important because you were taking on the whole entire British Empire. So if you could live those disciplines, then you could die with a smile on your lips and not a shred of hatred in your heart. I'm sorry, Will, the other quote I wanted to introduce, I don't actually have time for because I have the red light now. But I want to end this by saying, you know, I went to college, I took lots of government political classes in high school and all that. No one ever instructed me, as far as I recall, on these beautiful political action. To me, that's kind of sad. I went to a Big Ten college and did all that, lots of political theory classes, no mention of Gandhi. So that was really my main motivation for this speech, because Gandhi thought Satyagraha could be used as a universal solvent for harm and injustice throughout the world. So that was again my motivation, and it's like George C. Marshall said, that Gandhi serves as the conscience for all of mankind. Madam Toastmaster?
If everyone could take a couple of minutes and write some comments for Jeff. Now I'll hand you over to Scott Terry for the evaluation portion.
Yo!
Thought I was going to have to wrestle her for the stage here. To evaluate Jeff's really great talk, I think his best ever, by the way, really fantastic. I am now going to call Rick up in a second as he's moving up to the stage. He's coming. He's coming. Have fun.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, viewers at home. It's a real privilege for me to do the evaluation of Jeff's speech, as Gandhi is one of my personal heroes, and in my humble opinion, the greatest and most influential person of the 20th century. Jeff tried to cover a lot, an awful lot, in his speech, and I think he hit on the key facet of Gandhi's life, which was spirituality was the basis of political power, the basis of political effectiveness. These are kind of contradictory themes, and Jeff was very effective in using contradictory themes in his speech. So the contradictions he used were spirituality, political power, strength, weakness, means, and ends. And this was a very effective technique he used throughout the speech. Another thing Jeff did very effectively was use vocal variety, specifically when he was, I forget the exact quote, but it was something like, better to die than to submit to the law. And Jeff raised his voice, he used good gestures, and he repeated it 2 or 3 times to emphasize the point. I'll go through I could talk for quite a bit about this. I thought it was a terrific speech, a grand topic, and in your allotted time, I think you handled it well. I'll go through the points in the manual. How well did the speaker's topic apply to the audience? I think this is a key truth of life, that spirituality is the basis of not only political power, but everything. Was the topic well-researched? Clearly well-researched. A lot of facts, a lot of information, a lot of quotes. How well did the speaker support his or her main points very effectively with quotes and examples? How clear was the speaker's purpose? I think the speaker's purpose was very clear. In the beginning, Jeff mentioned spirituality and political power. I think that was very clear. Was the speech effectively organized? Yes. A good structure. Did the speaker take advantage of body language and vocal variety? I just mentioned an example where he did. What could the speaker have done differently to improve the speech? My only suggestion was, towards the end of the speech, you got, in my opinion, a little too academic. There's so much dramatic, there are so many dramatic things and grand themes in Gandhi's life and in his philosophy. I felt at the end you got a little bit bogged down in the details of that philosophy, and maybe you could have stuck to more grander themes. What did you like about the speech? I liked everything about it. If I had 15 minutes, I could go on. I thought it was a great speech.
Yo!
Thank you, Rick, for an excellent evaluation. We're now going to vote for the best evaluator tonight. There are 3. Did they all qualify? Rick, given the fact of Dan's extensive amount of people, I don't know if we gave him more time. I assume we did.
Everyone qualified. Alex, Dan, and Rick.
Who's that Rick guy?
Ah!
We're actually doing okay in time.
Keep rolling.
Let's go through our reports. Mr. Timer, in multiple roles.
Ha!
Of the table topic speakers, Matt, 1 minute 27 seconds. Ed, part 1, 1 minute 4 seconds. Will, 1 minute 5 seconds. Tom, 1:48. Scott, 2:10. Alex, 2:19. Rhonda, 2:15. Ed, part 2, 2:05. Carol, 1:30. Habib, 1:15. Jeff did not qualify. His time was 13:24. Evaluators, Alex, 2:20. Dan, 3:25. Rick, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Rick. Hot counter, Stephen?
We did very well tonight.
Is that okay, just checking. Catch a break.
Rhonda had only 1 false start. Stephanie, 2 ahs and 1 false start. Rick, 8 ahs, 3 Xeroxes, a false start and a pause. Will, just 2 ahs and 1 false start. Carol, 1 ah, 4 ums, a so, 2 ands, pause, and a Xerox. Matt, 3 ahs, an and a Xerox. Ed, 3 ahs, 3 so's, 4 ands, 1 false start. Tom was clean. Cindy, an and, a Xerox, and a couple false starts. Scott, nothing so far.
Oh.
Alex, 4 ahs, 6 ums, a so, a but, an and 4 okays. Habib, a few ahs. Dan, 3 ahs, 4 ums, 1 you know, 1 and, 1 pause, and 1 Xerox. Jeff, you had 4 uhs, 4 ums, 3 you knows, 5 so's, 2 ands, a pause, 5 Xeroxes, a false start, and you used another type thing that I thought I would mention to you because it's not on our list, but you would take a deep breath. I didn't count it as a pause, but in a way it was a pause. You had 8 of those.
Whoa!
Before Wolf talks, I just want to take one moment and compliment Stephen on this. It's such an important role that we often get lost in, and we often either take as criticism or try and ignore. But it's really a point of reflection and greater awareness of how we're communicating, how we're filling our communication. So it's really quite essential, and we should take it all in a positive light. Well,
Scott, the word of the day. Matt, Ed, Carol, and Jeff all used it. Now, the phrases I liked for Matt. I'm a beautiful snowflake, and you are too. Ed, what I love about the winter is the spring.
Yeah.
Tom, you don't notice the season when you are happy. Scott, hundreds of names from hundreds of years. Alex, I like the description of exploding ice and the ice that was encapsulating close to your vehicle. Rhonda, they're 18 and don't know much about life. I'm older, I know a little bit more, but I know that if I die, I'm going with them. If they die, I'm going with them. Carol, filled with warmth in my heart to my friends. Finally, in the movies, snowflakes are nice, but here in Fairfield, not so much.
Yeah.
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 Stephen, Toastmaster, joke away.
The Zen master was teaching, and he said, experience is something you don't get until just after you need it. Never test the depth of the water with both feet. If at first you don't succeed, skydiving, it is not for you. Give a man a fish, and he will eat for a day. But teach him how to fish, and he will sit in the boat and drink beer all day long. And finally, before you criticize someone, you should walk a mile in their shoes. That way, when you criticize them, you're a mile away and you have their shoes.
Yo.
Hi-yo. I like that. That was great. I will now do a quick evaluation of the evaluators. Alex, I like how you did positives, negative, room for improvement. The one note I would make is you demonstrated, and it made me want you to demonstrate more. So you would say something, and this is a comment I'm also going to make to Dan, so it's a theme for both of you guys. You'd hit on something, like come to the front of the podium. I take what Tom taught me a long time ago in terms of pausing. And he would demonstrate it so dramatically that you get the point. If I'm coming to the front of the room, don't just come to the front, but come to the front. And you would do it, you would do like gestures. I would say, be over the top, because you're so fantastic, you just snap it up a little bit. Same comment for you, Dan. One other comment to you, obviously you did a great job. Positives, looking at room for improvement. You didn't have a room for improvement for Habib. And I know it's hard because there's no time, you've had 6 people, but also how do you give room for improvement to somebody who's brand new, who's just here? How do you say, you know, next time you might want to try and do this because we want you to come back? And I don't have a good answer for that, but it's something we could all think about when we have guests come. What can we say to look for improvement? Rick, fantastic job, yes, and we're closing that. And we will talk to Rick later. Let's bring up Stephanie back for awards.
Yo!
We're running a little short on time. Okay, so now in terms of the awards, we'll have a drum roll for the best table topics. Best table topic was from Ed.
Yeah.
Which one?
Ed 1 or Ed 2? Ed 1. Doesn't matter.
I did like
I don't know which one.
Yeah.
Please display
My
it.
God, this is great.
Take it to your office for.
I will. I'll put it on my desk.
It's our marketing.
Okay, and moving on to best evaluator.
Yay!
Best evaluator is Rick Stark.
Yes. Roll. Yes.
Yeah.
We only had one speaker, and I think we should
Why-
Jeff
I can't take
a
the
little
trophy.
over time.
Good smile, nice smile.
Nice. It's been a great meeting, and now I'll pass you back to our president, Rhonda Whittaker.
Yo.
Get any welcome ribbons?
Now, we've had a wonderful evening. We've had so many new people come tonight. I'd like to ask one or two people who are willing, who came as guests, to stand up and say something they appreciate about the meeting before we close. Now-
Can we come up or do it from here?
Oh,
From there.
We're running short on time.
Well, I guess I'm most impressed by the genuineness and the caring that you obviously have for each other, and the quest for personal improvement that's obvious in everyone.
Yo.
We'd like to invite you and any of the guests tonight, we'd like to invite each of you to join our club tonight. We'd like you to come back one more time if you're interested, and we have information we can give you. Thank you. Sally, quick question?
Yeah, well, I was just, as a guest, that I've been a guest in September, trying to get the money together, and I have a really wonderful friend who's helping me become a member tonight.
Ooh. Whoa!
Mr. Harper.
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
Okay, we are doing our best to stop the meeting at the appointed time, which is 9:15. We have 2 minutes. We'd like to have some people stay and help us set up those 4 tables over there before we leave tonight and take down the stage. Otherwise, our guests, please mingle, talk with some of the officers. If you have questions, we have time for one more comment from the guests, if anyone would like to speak. Fellas, got anything you want to say? Okay, you look happy, that's good enough.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you all for coming.
With that, we will adjourn our meeting until same time, same place next week at 7:40 p.m. Adjourned.